We're live.
What America's been waiting for. From the industrial wastelands of Michigan to the fruited plains of Iowa, this is the American
Why
Grief
relate
Factor.
to its sheer perversity?
You are the dead. Remain exactly where you are. Make no move until you are ordered.
We burn them to ashes and then burn the ashes. That's our official motto.
Now we can see you. Clasp your hands behind your heads. Stand out in the middle of the room. Stand back to back.
Who can explain the fascination of fire? What draws us to it, whether we're young or old?
Here come the candles to light you to bed. Here comes a chopper to chop up your head.
And welcome to the American Grief Factory podcast. This is Nathan,
And this is Conlon.
and here we are again. It's June 6th, almost June 7th, 2020. This has been the greatest couple of years we've ever had. I am just amazed at the state of the world. I'm feeling optimistic. My teenage son is about to. He's going to be an adult at the end of the month. He's going into a great world, and he knows it too.
Trump is responsible for the most memorable year of ever.
Yeah, this is the kind of stuff you used to read about in books.
There's going to be so many books written about me.
Yeah, there will. That people, whole careers will be made about the decline of empire. He'll be like Nero. He'll be remembered like Nero, playing his fiddle while Rome burned or whatever that was. It's like, yeah, this is the guy. You'll be remembered. Yeah, I'm so glad with pandemics and financial crises. I'm so glad we got his steady hand at the helm. I mean, he's really people are really proving me wrong about his presidency. It's like, yeah, you're right. This is awesome. We're really doing something good.
Now time for the impossible transition.
Yes. Now let's move on from that to. I'm still working on the USS Constitution.
Just slowly, or just
Yeah,
or is it just a big model?
Yeah, it's big, and you got to be slow. You got to take your time because try to get it right.
Well, you said it was like an old model, and the fit wasn't that great. Do you have to do a lot of kind of fixing?
It's a glue monster with a Dremel reforming and lots of paint to cover up mistakes. It's I mean, I actually spent a lot more time, and the rigging's not even half done. But I'm tying knots with tweezers is like that's a patient art. You got to tie 2 knots with a tweezer. I use a lot of super glue to shore that up.
I've been seeing a lot of videos on YouTube of people taking hot glue guns and just making a bunch of glue sticks to fix dents in their car.
Yeah, you could do that.
I've never seen that before, so I was like...
I mean, you could buy a thing of Bondo body filler for like $10 too, and it'd probably work a lot better, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting technique. I mean, I've seen people like videos of these guys that buy, like they buy they basically like the rip off car salesman guys, buying like really expensive cars and then because they know they're crap, but they'll tear them apart and they'll find like there was one guy had like a Mustang and it was like a one from the last 2 years, and there was so much Bondo in it. Like when they started grinding on the body, like they didn't even try to pound the panels back into shape. They just put body filler in the crusher and just reshaped the whole car. And the guy was like, "This is why you don't buy cars from this guy." And then they'll show him the video and stuff, and it'll be like this Hall of Shame moment. Usually the people get violent and run them off the car lot. Sometimes the guy will be like, "I'll give you your money back. Just don't put this on YouTube." It's like, "Oh no, we make way more money on YouTube."
And I saw one where like people, they like lock their keys in the car and they just like take tape to the window and just keep taping and taping and taping until eventually they can just pull the window down.
I guess that would
But it's like a fuck ton of tape. It's like half a roll of tape. Just put on there. Clear tape too, not like duct tape. Clear tape. And just
Okay.
enough of it where you just get a purchase and just yank it down.
Yeah, I mean that's one way to do it. Never. I mean, I remember for a long time people were doing the holes in tennis balls and putting it over the keyhole and like
Yeah.
up in the air. But I guess that doesn't work anymore. 'Cause,
Yeah, there was a lot of cool stuff from like the 60s and 70s where you could just like grab something from a toolbox and get into a car and get it going.
oh, any General Motors product from like 1970 to like 1989, I could literally start with like a small screwdriver and a large screwdriver, two flatheads, because that ring you turn, there's only one retaining clip in there that keeps the key, that makes the key like it has to engage and then release that thing. There's only one retaining clip that's like holding that from doing it. And a lot of times that would break and people didn't even need the key. They would just like turn the ignition collar. That's those old style surround ignition collars where you actually turn, it had the two metal tabs on it. That was how you turn the key.
Yeah.
And that was like an open invitation for 3 decades. Just start those cars with. I mean, you just work the small screwdriver in there and bash it with the big one. You break that clip. And you just start it up and go. Now, when they put the wheel locks in, that made it a little more complicated, but not much.
Vagrant, didn't you talk about that from Terminator? Like, because they did that in Terminator.
Oh, yeah. Where you did well, he just crushed it.
Yeah.
It would twist and yeah. If you have like if you can generate like 1,100 foot-pounds of torque with your forearms, you could get past
Well, no, yeah. Well, I guess there was two. Yeah, because Arnold stole cars too. But I think he just forced it. But like Kyle Reese had like a screwdriver and like took off like the cover over the wheel well and just like turned it.
Yeah.
Because
Wasn't hard to do back then.
vaguely reminds me of something. A short story I've been meaning to write, but never got. Somebody had to have written it before. But there's the whole idea. It's called The Useless Time Traveler.
Okay.
And the idea is that me myself gets transported back to the early to mid 70s, and I have like what's on my person, and then it's all about how like I can't affect the future because I don't like really know how to explain anything,
Yeah.
any concept or like really like any like I have like my phone on me, but I can't like say like here's how you make this.
Yeah. I don't even understand how it works.
And it's like me kind of vaguely and the great thing about it is that you don't have to do research because it's all about like what do you know offhand that you can give to the past to change the future, and like I don't really know anything. Like I know how that thing kind of works and it looks cool, but I can't tell you how to make it or get it to work.
You could do what Hurley did in Lost when he was back in the 1970s. He just wrote as screenplays these Star Wars movies because he thought he was going to capitalize on that before. And he just wrote because he knew all the dialogue and scenes from the Star Wars movie. So he just wrote that, and he's like, I'm going to turn this in and make a lot of money.
And that's the other thing where it's like about me and my ego is the thing I do in it is that I eventually use my fame of being a time traveler. And it's like, well, I want to make movies. And it's like, but I'm like, I don't trust myself to make the movie that I write. So I just like off the top of my head, write the original Terminator and try to and get that filmed. And I get that made into a movie before James Cameron makes it. And it still stars Arnold Schwarzenegger. But Kyle Reese is Who's the guy from Marathon Man and Tootsie?
Oh, Dustin Hoffman?
Yeah, Dustin Hoffman as Kyle Reese.
Now, does Harlan Ellison still sue you and win?
I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out. Like, because like what I know about James Cameron is like how that got out is that he like basically let that slip that was an influence, and so like, do I let that slip as an influence? Like, does my ego grow? But it's also me trying to make the Terminator with like as much money as I can get, but during the 70s, like because the Terminator wasn't necessarily like that complex of a movie. And also, it was a cheap movie. So with more money but earlier, can you make the same movie?
Yeah, that'd be weird. Do like the original Westworld type
Yeah.
Terminator effects, where it's like Yul Brynner's face pops off, and
And then also like I'd have to deal with like I don't know the Terminator screenplay by heart, so a lot of it, there's a lot of shit just gets filled in by me.
that'd be great because the 70s were the darkest era for sci-fi. Bleakest sci-fi was like the Terminator would fit right in the 70s.
And then the whole framework is that like at the end it's like it's an essay written by my childhood self and how I'm a terrible person and I didn't help anything.
Did I affect change in the world? Not really. Did I make a lot of money off other people's ideas? Yes.
Oh yeah, and the other thing I do is I take music off of my phone and I sell it before it even gets made. Thus just crippling Trent Reznor's career, and it never takes off because I already sold all this shit.
I'd like to hear, like some Nine Inch Nails song, but with 70s like.
Well, no, it's just the original Nine Inch Nails song, but it's just taken off my phone and then put on a record and sold in stores. And then maybe I give some residuals to Trent Reznor. It's like, sorry, you're not gonna grow up to make this anymore, but you made it in the future.
And then in the end, you walk into like this star chamber, and it's like there's 12 guys sitting around a table, and it's all the famous movie directors we know who they also were time travelers, but you went back a little. And so it's like the whole thing just implodes on itself. You've created an entertainment paradox. Disney owns everything in the end. Anyway, so that's how it works.
So yeah, the Useless Time Traveler, a soon to not be written short story by me. But like I assume like somebody's had to have made that.
Yeah, I'm sure they have.
Because like I said, like you don't need to do research. Because the only thing I need to do research about is like I really just don't know the 70s.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a strange time.
Because like I assume like at some point I'm doing an interview on like on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. Like that would be a moment from the 70s.
Here it is, the biggest voice in entertainment. Doing some wild and crazy stuff out there. We got robots, we got weird digital music.
But do we get robots? And do I have that influence, or do we try to get robots?
Oh, and movies.
Oh, okay.
Robots. Just it's a Terminator robots in movies. Now the robots from the 70s were like just big rail riding. Did you ever see the picture of a 250 megabyte hard drive from like 1970?
Oh yeah, it's like a file cabinet.
Like a wagon wheel. Took it 4 hours to encode data, and it was of course it was NASA. It was a NASA thing.
I'm trying to explain to them like file transfer protocols because like I vaguely remember that from my what the fuck, digital networking class or data networking class.
Oh,
this is kind of.
They'd have no idea about it. They wouldn't even have the capability of doing it. They just
Oh, I mean, they could do it. It would just be on such a small scale.
Yeah.
Because like one of the things like I could vaguely describe to them is like how in the future when the internet started getting big, what we were banking on was buffering or like having enough data to like make sure that there was no packet loss whatsoever. So they had just big giant buffers to hold the data and make sure it all got sent. But then that actually slowed down the internet. So it's more about just dropping the data packet and then keep going.
Yep.
And they had different protocols. Like I think the current one's called like Utah protocol, which is like how it deals with data packets and packet loss and stuff like that. But like I can vaguely describe the concept. I can't tell you how to make it.
Yeah. Just like his microchip brain in the original Terminator. But it gave us ideas. Remember when Dyson was explaining that?
Yeah.
also like how the computers in Star Trek were. They were omnipresent but never there. Like they never really went too deep into what a computer was in Star Trek. Because in the original series, they talked like this, calculating. You know, they were kind of like, "Ooh, that was futuristic in the '60s." And then the Next Generation, it's like you talk to them and they did things, but they never really went like too deep on what they were. And now the modern Star Trek, it's like, what's a computer? You mean these iPads we all have? And like, what's the new? Because I remember like the touch screen in the Next Generation.
Well, they had a bunch of. They've been doing a bunch of stuff with like. There's been maybe it's different sci-fi stuff, but don't they have like contacts? You just put them in, and that's where all your computer is. It's in your contacts.
Well, yeah, I've seen stuff like that, but I mean like just because like the Next Generation was credited with like the fluid touch screens that we now have ubiquitously. Like that was cool on Star Trek, but it was only in one color, and it was kind of what they could conceptualize back then. And then iPads were like they had a thing called a pad, and they looked at it, and they
it was a data pad, a D-pad.
But now, like when you watch Picard, which is like the future of Star Trek, everything's like the hologram control and stuff. It's like, oh yeah, they're going wild.
No one's ever gonna fucking use that.
No, well, it'd give you a headache. You wouldn't like it after.
Well, there's no tactile feel. Like every time they project, every time they make those things, it makes it seem like there's like so much precision and control because you're just using your hands. But no, there's no way unless there's like contacts like embedded in your fingers.
Yeah,
there's no way you could utilize a hologram like that effectively.
Yeah, they would have to like integrate something into your brain that would create an artificial tactile field just to use that interface. It's like, why don't we just put the computer in all this shit? A step, and just because if we
I know visually it looks cool, but
it's kind of dumb.
But like, it's one of those things where visually it looks cool, but I just look at it and it's like, I'd never do that. That seems like too much work.
It's jumping the shark a little bit. At least on like.
Well, I mean, that was probably the most famously done in Minority Report, and they're still doing it. Like that movie's like 12 years old or something.
Yeah. But like, I think in like The Expanse they get it right because they do that, but it's actually a glass plate that it's projected in. Like, so they're actually touching something,
and it's got a crack in it.
But they're actually like doing stuff with something. It's not just floating in the air.
No. There is an endpoint where you touch things and it exists somewhere.
Now, like on The Expanse, like they can press something and it'll project like an image of a planet.
Well, yeah, like it made sense. Like when Cass was like trying to figure out his path to get to the planet without using propulsion, and like he had a whole VR setup. That shit made sense.
Yeah,
because he could look at everything from an angle. But he's projecting a weird trajectory in certain circumstances. So one, it shows the audience what he's doing, and also it makes sense for his character to be doing that just because he could get all levels of information about like what he's doing and when, and simulations and all that.
Yeah, have you ever seen how they plotted the trajectory to the moon?
How
smart those? Cause it's just a bunch of math. You know, now if we did it, we'd have to explain it to guys like me, like there'd be a graphical representation. And then I could understand it at some point. But these guys were just like drawing a bunch of like cosine next to the y ratio. And it's like, this is how we get to the moon. And I'd look at that and be like, oh, well, good luck, I guess. I don't know.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Like, sometimes you forget, like, you think like, oh, computers have advanced so much. But like, no, computers back then could run these simulations for like high level simulations for like, well, high levels. So there's a thing I get caught up in, like high level doesn't mean what you think it means, or at least it means different things in different areas. So like in computer science, when you say high level, you're talking about like surface level stuff. So we're really talking about like vague. It's more vague. It's not in depth. And like the lower you go, lower level is where you're getting like into the weeds and it's very specific stuff. So, but I always get like when I say high level, I always think like high means good, low means bad.
But in this case, high level is like referring to a refined, completed product.
Yeah.
Just talking about the kernels and the processor. which wouldn't be as like intriguing to most people.
But I mean, no, like they could run like in the '70s and stuff. They could run really complicated simulations. It's just that like they couldn't interpret in a way that made sense. Like the mathematicians, like, oh yeah, this is what the storm's gonna do, and they just look at the numbers, and that's what you literally had printouts. Like, well, if we could print out every page of the simulation, we could, make a flip book or something. But
Visualize way to visualize it outside of people that just lived in a world of pure mathematics.
yeah,
Now it kind of you almost think you can grasp it because it's a pretty picture.
yeah.
Which is how I understand most science. So I'm thankful. I don't understand shit.
But it's like that the science from that time was still valid. They just didn't have the computers to necessarily like prove it to an idiot that like, no, this is what I'll do.
Well, I mean, the big difference I see between I mean, there's huge differences, but the early computers that I use versus the stuff they have now is you could do a lot with those computers, but there was no graphical interface.
Yeah.
You fed data in, you got data out, and that's how you used it. You didn't spin anything around in 3 dimensions and do CAD drawings and stuff, where you could actually visualize and then like shoot it over to like how Ford does cars now. They just like design a component in CAD with a bunch of engineers, and if they want to see like physically how that would look and how it would interact with other things, they just shoot it on a 3D printers.
Yeah.
We're talking about shit that used to take months, and you had mock-up guys and stuff. They're doing it in a week.
Well,
Like the transmission components, they showed us once how they visually do that and make them out of plastic.
I was reading about like when they were making the F-15 Eagle, and like they had like something that's like F1 uses. So like they have limited at wind tunnel time, but the thing they have is like computational fluid dynamics.
Yep.
Which is kind of like what can kind of represent like how when in a computer simulation how you're designing your car would work. And like they were doing stuff like that in like the 60s. It's just that like you couldn't like you just have these geniuses that could look at data points. It's like, oh, I see what this is doing.
Yeah.
But it wasn't visually represented in any manner.
Yeah, and it didn't. You could also put a lot more factors in now that you couldn't back
Yeah,
then.
yeah.
They could account for like
It's just amazing like what you could do back then, because I just couldn't fathom looking at a data sheet and then interpreting it. It's like, oh, this is what will happen.
Yeah, I mean, you can ask Dad about engineering back then, because it's one thing. It's like it was very manpower intensive.
Yeah.
Versus now, I mean, this is like one of the problems we have is like, you used to have you had a guy that just maintained the computers. That was it. Like it was just one guy that maintained these, electromagnetic computers that just ran off cards or floppy disks as big as pizza boxes and stuff. And that was his whole job. And there was a team of guys that they did that. And now it's like, it's 1 or 2 people for a whole company, depending on what you're doing. But you also make a lot better stuff nowadays. It's a lot more proofed out.
Yeah.
It's how they can launch.
And you can make really awesome stuff out of really cheap, barely usable material. It's like, why is this so strong? This material sucks so much. It's like, it's engineering.
Well, it's like I said, when they can visualize, like, say, an alternator, or the stuff they showed us was a transmission. When you can go from like design concept, prototype to finished product in like 6 months. Oh, that used to be years. I mean, look how long cars stayed the same.
Yeah.
It's like the new 1990 Escort. It was the same car for 12 years. I mean, they might have like went from sealed beam to halogen headlights, and they had to make new headlights and new taillights, and they might have rounded it off a little bit, but it was essentially you could take parts out of one and put it in the other. Now, I mean, we're getting ready to launch the new F-150. We didn't launch the new F-150 that long ago. It was like 4 years ago. It came out with the aluminum F-150. Now there's the new aluminum F-150, which is stronger, takes less parts, and it looks, from what I've seen, it looks great. But it's like, yeah, you would never change a product like that in 4 years. You might round off the body and put in your
Unless the government forced you to.
Well, the government forces auto companies to do anything. It's usually because the government's paying. This is just completely like, we have to make them look more like moon vehicles or Tesla's Cybertruck. It's like, oh God, he's gonna beat us. It's like, no, he's not. Look at the price point on that thing. It's not gonna beat you. Unless you want to just sell $100,000 vehicles to an exclusive clientele. Maybe they do. I don't know.
And then I watched all of Space Force.
Okay, the Corral one.
Yep.
What'd you think of that? I've heard it's a mixed bag.
Yep. It remained uneven throughout the entire series.
Okay.
The first episode I could say where it was like kind of wall to wall a good episode with lots of laugh was episode 9, and there's 10 episodes in the season.
Okay, so that's a little late in the ninth inning. We're bringing it home.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they. Yeah, I think it was the #1 show on Netflix for a while, so we'll see if that saves it. I don't know how much they spent on this. I don't know how much this is like replacing, trying to appease Office fans or something, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
How was one of my favorite actors was in that? John Malkovich was. I mean, he wasn't in a lot, was he? How was he?
Oh, he's in every episode.
Oh, was he? Okay.
He's never the focus of an episode. He's good. It just seems like a waste of his talent.
Oh,
Because it's like whenever he's in a scene, it lends an authenticity, but it doesn't make it better. It's hard. It's hard to. He's fine in it. Actually, the part I like is whenever they do the Joint Chiefs of Staff meetings, like they cast that really well.
okay.
So they have Diedrich Bader as the Secretary of the Army. Do you know who Diedrich Bader is?
No, I don't know that name.
He was on the Drew Carey show, and he was also the neighbor on Office Space who's like, 2 chicks at the same time, dude. You remember that guy?
Yeah, yeah.
And so he's still in like really good shape. So like he makes a really good. He's like age appropriate, so he's good for a Secretary of the Army. Secretary of the Navy, you have Jane Lynch, so she works really good there. Then the Secretary of the Air Force, he's the FBI guy from The Americans,
Oh, okay.
which is kind of a weird choice because he does a lot of comedy, but he doesn't necessarily do it well. But he kind of works as like you're supposed to like. Because Steve Carell's character thought he was going to be the Secretary of the Air Force, and he ends up being the Secretary of the Space Force. Like he kind of hates that guy, so he makes it easy to hate him. So he does his job well.
Huh.
And then the Commandant of the Marine Corps is Patrick Warburton.
Okay. Yeah.
so yeah, it's just a really good. Oh, and then I forget who's there's the Secretary of the Coast Guard.
Okay.
And
This young man has delivered me pizza. Say hi to everyone. I don't know if
yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Sometimes I just get brought pizza.
And oh yeah, so anytime they had this one episode where they were doing defense spending, so they have to go to Congress to like try to argue for defense spending. And when they have the meeting, like everybody's in there, but then when the Secretary of the Coast Guard comes in, they're like, "Get the fuck out of here!" And he gets kicked out of the meeting.
Oh God.
Yeah, so that's pretty funny. There was also one part where like the one guy was like talking about menstruation and tampons. I forget what the thing is. And then Steve Carell says something. And he's like, "You know what I'm talking about." And he's like pointing at Jane Lynch, and she says, "Gender me one more time, and I will fuck you in the ass." He's like, "Fair enough." Yeah, you could just make a whole series about that Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Yeah, I might check that out if I get a chance.
Yeah, I mean it's only 20-minute episodes, but yeah, it's.
Oh, I didn't know they were that short. I thought they were full.
Well, yeah, it's a comedy. It's yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then one of the probably one of the worst parts is like what they do with his daughter, because it's obviously no writer on the show knows what to do with her, so her character is like pretty much rebooted into every episode. It's like, oh, what are we gonna do with her now? What are we gonna do with her now? It's like, well, nothing funny.
Meg from Family Guy.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
And then like one that like caught me off guard, but then I found out I didn't miss it. It's like an intentional mystery that they just throw in there randomly. Is that in the first episode when he gets his promotion to general, he 4-star general. His wife's there and his daughter's there, and his wife is Lisa Kudrow. And then you don't see her for like 3 or 4 episodes, and then you find out she's in jail for like 40 years, and they don't tell you why.
Like a lot of randomness.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it makes it interesting because it's like you typically that kind of setup where you have like the mother daughter and then like the dopeful husband who's like keeps screwing things up, but like the wife and the daughter are like kind of like all knowing and they kind of like guide him, but and maybe I'd say something about like the patriarchy and shit like that, where it's like men can fuck up this much and still succeed, but women can't can't do anything without it. But that's usually never. That's something you can read, but it's never something intended.
Oh, the Verhoeven effect.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is much deeper than you think.
So here that like they kind of like deter from that dynamic, which makes it interesting, and makes it it gives it possibility, but no, we'll see if they get a second season.
Now, because Space Force is essentially a Trump thing, do they ever reference the president?
They just say POTUS, and then like they kind of mention that how chaotic times are, but they never directly say Trump. So that's how they get around it. Although the Secretary of Defense is he's like he's like one of those shithead bosses who like his underlings he's very like fierce with and like derides them and makes fun of them and like but as soon as like the boss comes calling, he's like, okay, mister, we'll get that done right away. Like those kind of assholes.
Yeah. The unidirectional rage guys.
Yeah,
they're always fun.
So yeah, like I said, it remained uneven throughout. There was one episode I'd say was through and through good, and then the last episode was like just seemed kind of weird because they kind of brought everything together and it didn't seem necessarily like it built to it properly, but it ends on a cliffhanger. Like a lot of weird shit happens at the end of it.
Yeah, that's I've always wondered what that's gonna be like in real life.
Yeah. I imagine that'll just be something where it won't actually be like a branch of the military. It'll just be like a thing, and then occasionally people are labeled as Space Force.
Yeah, just look cool on a poster.
Because like who are you gonna hire out of high school to teach to do something in the Space Force? On an enlistment, which like that's the whole thing. Like like my job, like was kind of a high end thing. But like, so it wasn't really used like in the military. It was really something that's been moved over to like a civilian sector thing because, a machinist, you'll want somebody who's going to have a career spent there. So you're going to want the civilian people to be there, not somebody that's going to be like 4 and gone. And so you're just constantly refreshing the people are there who never gain like abilities. It's just constantly refreshed. It's like, well, I hope they're teaching them good at the schoolhouse.
I think Space Force should be like Star Blazers, where we just transition into space, we just rehab World War II battle cruisers and make them spaceships. Navy, it's the ship of sea, ship in space.
Yeah. Make the Hammer of Dawn, or no, was that the Pillar of Autumn? That's Hammer of Dawn's Gears of War. Pillar of Autumn is that's Halo, right?
Yeah, yeah, and that's the names. We should go with those name schemes now. Maybe when they make new ships, just go with the Halo. Could you imagine how cool it would be to have an aircraft carrier called the Pillar of Autumn? What the fuck are they doing? we're always naming them after presidents and people and stuff. But no, let's give it an ominous name, like Goodbye Blue Earth. Why do they call an aircraft carrier Goodbye Blue Earth?
They had a successful launch for the SpaceX/NASA thing, so
Yeah, I saw that.
putting people back into space.
That's good.
I wonder what they're gonna do with the saved rocket. You
Reuse
think?
it.
Yeah, but you think they're gonna put like a manned spaceflight on the reuse, or you think they're just gonna use it to launch a
What?
satellite?
That's a good question. Are there, but I mean, I would not want to be the guy who rides the recycled rocket. We're gonna drop down. You just got like that big recycling symbol on the side of the rocket. It's like, here we go for the second man mission. People in mission control are kind of like,
I also heard something interesting about Elon Musk. Is that did you know he didn't even start Tesla?
yeah, he was basically a VC.
Yeah,
Became the celebrity face of the company he doesn't actively run anymore, or does, or I don't know.
yeah.
I mean, when he went on Joe Rogan and smoked dope, he got taken out of the leadership for a while.
Yeah.
Because for some reason that just people aren't going to take you seriously. And I was like, yeah, everyone smokes dope now. Everyone who's cool and has money and doesn't work for some company where they give you a drug test, they smoke. I don't smoke dope because I work for one of those companies. But I don't know how that doesn't affect his judgment any. His judgment's always been weird. He can do anything. Ask him.
But he recently, I guess, he just purchased it completely, so that all the original co-owners are gone now. So
Yeah, because it hasn't made money in 10 years. And
yes, but wait, is it on the stock market or is it going to be?
no, it's publicly traded. It's
Okay.
some value, but it's
Yeah, it has some obscene value associated with it. That's
it's a Potemkin village. I mean, nobody. If they weren't getting huge subsidies from states and governments, they wouldn't exist.
yeah.
But because no one's gonna buy. I mean, their cars and their products look and sound cool, but like just go to YouTube. It's like, I owned a Tesla for 5 years. That's pretty eye opening.
Well, I was more getting at like all the companies he owns. Like I guess I always assumed like he had some technical know-how to like that inspired these things, but like no, he just thinks things are cool and buys them,
Yeah, it's kind of
and then pretends he made them.
yeah, they're kind of. I mean, he is an engineer, but he's not like an all-craft engineer. I don't know what his engineering degree. I think he's a.
Well,
software-
he started PayPal, or he was a part of it, so I assumed he was like a software engineer, but maybe he's like some other like mechanical engineer or something.
I'm not. I know he is some kind of engineer, but
I mean, you listen to him talk about that. He clearly understands the stuff, but it's not like he's like, I'm the breakthrough spearhead to all new technology. He's like, no, he finds
yeah,
somebody.
He's become more the celebrity. He's the unobtainium guy. Goes up, look at this. But they say he's like, oh no, this guy's like Tony Stark. So, no, he's not. Tony Stark, number one, is a fictional character. No one's that smart. Number two, he doesn't he's not the sole proprietor and inventor and manufacturer of everything he does. He's just kind of a celebrity guy that's sort of fun to talk to. Kind of looks weird, and so we all like him.
And I never looked it up. Do you know how to pronounce his kid's name?
No.
Okay.
I just assumed that was him fucking with the media and his
Yeah,
name
probably.
would be Joseph or something. He doesn't like the media.
Oh yeah, of course not.
They get him wrong. And,
Well, he probably liked the media until they started to turn on him.
yeah.
It's like, I don't get it. Why do you guys not like me? Why do I have to hear your shit all the time? You're infecting my investors' meetings.
Yeah. Why? Well, you don't love me? Like all these, supermodels, they all love me, right? Yeah. They love you. But yeah, I don't know. He's just like when Steve Jobs died, we needed another one. We needed a popularizer of things, and this is who we get.
So EA recently released a remaster version of the original Command and Conquer and Command and Conquer Red Alert.
Okay, how's that?
It's pretty neat. Because computers run at much higher resolutions. They have like a new graphics and they have the old graphics that you can switch between. And because of my computers at like such a higher resolution, the old graphics look like shit.
Yeah, it's a little blocky.
Yeah, it's super fuzzy. But because like when you have a lower resolution, like it just looks better, crisper, and neat because the resolution's lower. But one neat thing they did is because it was a lot of that. It looks primitive by comparison, but they did all that live action video stuff and some like CGI stuff that just looks bad now. But like they didn't necessarily have like a film like what do you call it? They don't have like a master film that they can go back to like color correct and make it look nice.
Right.
So they had to go through and use like machine learning. And essentially, how deep fakes kind of work. They essentially like deep faked it or use machine learning to take the original shitty digital stuff that they shot and make it look better.
Okay.
And like on a more on with screens with higher resolution and doing full screen. So it's kind of neat. You can see it. You can see like stuff kind of how it swims, how the video swims, but like it looks like way better than like what it would be if they just did a direct transfer and it's basically looks like a static screen that was flesh color.
Yeah. So they changed the gameplay mechanics or anything?
No, they're mostly the same. Like I think there's a few changes, but you probably wouldn't if you played the game, you probably wouldn't notice.
Yeah.
Like I think like StarCraft kind of popularized the right click as kind of being the universal thing where it's like you left click to select a unit and then right click kind of does contextually it does stuff. Or here the right click is like the deselect.
Oh, okay.
Which that was kind of in a being kind of like forward. A lot of people use the StarCraft model rather than the Command and Conquer model, but so the old models is here intact. And I just tried the first couple levels of the original Command and Conquer. Really, Red Alert's where it's at, but also was watching the old videos, which is just kind of nostalgic, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm playing as the GDI first, so I don't get like the weird interstitials with the Kane and the Brotherhood of Nod and all that weird like occult like Nazi shit.
Yeah, that stuff was always weird.
But it was fun. It was intentionally campy.
Yeah, they weren't trying to be serious. My favorite one, the one I wasted the most time with, was Tiberian Sun.
Yeah.
I don't know why that game in particular. I played that just obsessively. and the expansion.
Didn't they have James Earl Jones in that?
Trying to see, let's see who looked like.
Yeah, I think it had Michael Biehn, James Earl Jones.
Biehn was in it. Let's see.
So that's probably like the most notable cast. 'Cause I think like the subsequent like Red Alert franchise like had a bunch of wrestlers and like had Sulu from Star Trek in one of them, and then they had why I can't remember his name. Ric Flair was in one of the Red Alerts.
Oh, that's right. Let's see, let me try to. I can't. They list the programmers for some reason. Where's the actor?
Usually Internet Movie Database will have stuff for video games. They'll list the actors. So, let's see if it just comes up as Tiberian Sun. That was 99? Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got Michael Biehn, James Earl Jones, and that looks like to be about all the people that seem notable.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember because Tiberian Sun was different because it kind of had that weird it was a very dark game.
Yeah.
The world was just being consumed, and it kind of struck the right note. It had sort of the weird, catchy soundtrack.
Yeah.
and it's kind of had more of a backstory, not too deep, but I just remember playing, and the expansion pack. I think it was called Firestorm or something.
Yeah.
We had the big hulking mechs and just weird shit. I played that game a lot. Just remember that was like my favorite Command and Conquer game. And you don't really hear about that one anyway. It's always everything. Did a lot of Red Alert expansions and stuff, but
Yeah. Well, yeah. Mainline Command and Conquer never really worked well. Probably past the first. Well, I mean, Tiberian Sun, I believe, was somewhat successful, but also there's a reason like that company went out of business and they don't make Command and Conquer games anymore. So
Westwood Studios is not a thing anymore.
no. I believe their last game might have been the Blade Runner game,
Oh, okay.
which was lost to time until recently.
Oh, it's come back.
Because they lost the source code somehow, so there was no way to like bring it to modern PCs.
Okay.
And then GOG, good old games, those plucky Polish people, they fucking went at it and got the game running, like found a way to ground up make it. I forget, it was something interesting where like you hear about how they did it, and it's just like wild, where they just like play the original game on an old computer and then like write code guessing what it's doing, and they're like, yeah, that seemed to work.
A lot of time.
I don't know, they're used to making old games, so maybe they have some weird process that like kind of streamlines it, but
Yeah, that could be.
because it's not like they released it like here's Blade Runner $60. Like, no, it's like $9 on GOG.
Well, okay.
But you can play it on modern computers. So, like usually a lot of American games, there's a lot of good record keeping for that stuff, so they don't get like lost to time. But there's like tons of Japanese games where they like weren't really into like preserving the game code, so there's like tons of that shit that just gets lost to time.
Never heard from again.
Yeah, and there are like somebody like will go into like an archive and they find the code, but not like on a disc. It's like a literal printout of the code.
On paper.
Yeah,
That's gonna work.
but that's also fascinating, fucking weird.
Yeah. Yeah, there was no nostalgia originally. Well, it's like the Doctor Who. It's like they had to go to people for the oldest episodes. Is like, yeah, we broadcasted this on this time and date. Did anyone have it on their VCR tape? we destroyed the original prints and.
Well, did they record over it? Then they videotape it and they just record over the videotape?
There was something like that. Yeah, I'm not sure. I just know there was some. I think they found them all now, but yeah. We're just asking the public. It's like, hey, if you have a copy of this, that'd be great. Because we don't.
Yeah, I don't know like when the time was made, but usually like mostly American companies, and maybe it's because it's just them like preserving like their owned properties, but like American companies are really good at like keeping archives of all the work they've ever done.
Yeah.
Whereas like around the world, that wasn't necessarily. They probably all do it nowadays because there's just too much potential money that you just keep all that stuff just because like this could be money someday.
Yeah. Yeah, they do we do have a lot. There were some things that were lost, but not much.
Yeah, a lot of stuff that gets lost is like that stuff that was like on that flammable film stock.
Yeah.
It's like all that film. There's a lot of that film stuff that's kind of lost to time, but they've done a lot of work to computerize it and remaster that stuff.
Yeah, it'll all be lost when the big EMP strikes. Be like Blade Runner 2049. Like nobody has any past because all the computers got wiped out.
And then another game I've been playing is Deliver Us the Moon.
Okay, that sounds weird.
Yeah, it's an apocalyptic sci-fi game where the Earth is fucked, and you somehow launch a rocket at an abandoned rocket facility by yourself with no other crew. So what happened? The Earth is like succumbing to global warming or whatever, and it's just not viable to grow food anymore.
Yeah.
And the only way we were getting away with like whatever we're doing is that they built a space station on the moon. They found helium 3 there, and they were beaming energy back to Earth from the moon.
Okay.
And then we basically just had unlimited energy on Earth. And then one day they stopped sending the energy, and they stopped getting messages from the moon, and they don't know what happened.
Oh, did their clone die?
No.
Because that's what was going on in Moon.
Yeah. And Moon, were they sending energy back to Earth, or what were they sending
They were
back to Earth?
harvesting helium-3 for
Okay, so it's the same thing. Okay. So they probably stole it from that. Because they also in Space Force, it's about helium-3.
Yeah.
Is there something about helium-3 on the moon that I don't know about? I never heard of that before.
The only reason I know about helium-3 is because I read Teller's book about the hydrogen bomb, and helium-3 is like super fusion friendly with hydrogen. Like you don't have to really energize it a lot.
Yeah.
That's what like Teller and Ulram discovered, is if you use tritium and you have a nuclear explosion, you create a lot of helium-3, which is why a hydrogen bomb is so much more powerful than just an atomic bomb.
Oh.
Because you know the initial fission reaction just implodes everything, but in that reaction helium-3 is created, and then the secondary reaction is all the hydrogen and helium fusing again, then creating a third blast, which is why we have special satellites that look for we know when anyone's testing a nuclear bomb in the world, it's called the double flash.
Huh.
There's only a hydrogen bomb makes that double flash. First flash is the nuclear explosion. The second flash is the fusion of hydrogen and helium rapidly, and then you don't really get a third effect because everything's just blown out at that point. But
Yeah.
that's how we know people are developing hydrogen munitions. It's because it's the double flash. But yeah, that helium-3 is, if you want to fuse it with hydrogen, it's really it doesn't take a lot of energy to make that happen.
Well, I think I forget which fiction was talking about it. They said that the good thing about it is because it's helium, so it's super light, so you can cram a lot of it, and it's easy to transport through space.
Yeah.
So yeah, you launch a spacecraft by yourself, and then you go to the moon. But first, you go to the moon's space elevator,
Nice.
which is pretty cool. It's cool. Like you're on the space elevator at the top of the space station. You just kind of like see the long neck of the space elevator, and then the moon's off in the distance, and it just kind of looks really cool. And there's a
Curvature to it.
what's that?
Has a neat curvature to it.
Yeah.
Ears, yeah.
And then at some point, the space station or the top of the control station at the top of the space elevator gets blown up, and there's like a really cool sequence where you're like trying to fly back to it, and there's just debris all over the fucking place. And it's a really cool scene, and it was a really small team, so like that was pretty impressive for what they did. Although the sequence kind of sucks because it's really easy to die.
Oh.
So it's like visually impressive, but then you have to keep finding these oxygen things to keep yourself alive, and it's just very easy to die if you miss one of them. But yeah, then you eventually get to the moon to try to solve the mystery of like what happened to everybody on the moon, and you find out like while they were harvesting the helium-3, this one guy was like building these generation ships, and like they were just gonna leave the moon, and like they never sent all the energy back to Earth, and then the generator got like fucked with at some point, and so it stopped sending energy to Earth, and then these people just take off in these spaceships and leave Earth behind.
Oh, okay.
Which is it's pretty fucked up. But they do a clever thing that Tacoma did, which is another video game you're not gonna know, but like when you unlock these video segments and you're showing the characters and you get the full voice, but they're not really fully animated and they're not even texture. It's just kind of like an orange shaped character like a human, and then that's how they like play out the animation. That way you don't have to spend money developing character animations and building characters. So but yeah, it's on Game Pass. So I thought it was pretty cool for what it was. It's fairly short. There's only a few places where like, what the fuck am I supposed to do now? And you just go on YouTube and find a walkthrough. So
Yeah. Good old YouTube. So we watched a movie this week.
yes,
We watched the don't have my thing up. We watched The Lovebirds.
Michael Showalter's The Lovebirds.
Yes, starring that guy from the
Camille Nanjiani.
yeah, Camille Nanjiani, and Mr. Ray.
Also, yeah. But she's on a television show on HBO called Insecure.
Okay, I thought I recognized her from some things.
Yeah, Insecure is a show I watched the first episode. I was like, this is pretty good, and I never watched any of it. The rest of it, there's like 3 seasons of it now. But I liked what I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is directed by Michael Showalter, who I don't know if you remember The State. He was a part of The State.
No, I don't remember that one.
You don't remember The State? It was like a sketch comedy. It was a sketch comedy show on MTV with basically a lot of the Reno 911 guys.
Okay, and what was it about? Just
Oh, it was just sketch comedy.
oh, okay. I don't remember that one.
Ah.
Sorry.
And then I don't. Do you remember Stella? It was like Michael Ian Black, Michael Showalter, and Michael fucking the other Michael. But it had like 1 season on Comedy Central, so I don't know if you remember that. But yeah, he's also like a professor at like New York University.
That's interesting.
I think he teaches history or something. Because when you see him like do acting performance, he's very wacky, and it's hard to see him. It's like, oh, you're a collegiate teacher, huh?
Yeah. You're a teacher at a big time school.
But anyways, yeah. So he directs dumb comedy. Oh yeah, so Wet Hot American Summer. I'm not sure if he directed that, but he's part of that.
Oh, okay.
He did. Michael Wayne's the other guy. They both direct stuff.
Yeah.
Who directed Wet Hot American Summer? David Wayne. Michael Showalter wrote that,
Oh, okay.
and I think he's also in it. Yeah, he's in it. Anyways, so The Lovebirds.
Yes. So this was I don't like a lot of comedies. They're not funny, or they don't.
Well, yeah, like this is usually not the kind of movie we do, but like I figured to just go for it because it's another Netflix movie.
Yeah.
So this may be a break from a lot of the kind of average to mediocre, like heavy dramas and actioners.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was definitely that. I mean, this movie, I enjoyed it. I watched it. It wasn't like background noise. I was kind of like, just engaged in it a little bit because I like the 2 main actors.
Yeah.
They did a good job of being this kind of quirky couple.
Did you ever watch Game Night?
Yes.
This kind of like reminded me of that in a way.
Yeah, it seemed to have those kind of elements to it. Like I said, just kind of people have quirky people with kind of, I mean, they're not eccentric, but they're just sort of like.
They kind of have like a meta commentary throughout, where they're kind of like they kind of like state the situation as it exists, and they're like then they get more horrified by it, and it's kind of like the meta humor of the.
Yeah, they talk about what's going on, and these like normal people. Like she works at a ad agency, and he's like a documentary filmmaker, and these are the most like mild people, and they get sucked into things where like people are being murdered and
sex cults.
Yeah, the weird eyes wide shut, scenes, and they're running commentary on the orgy. Like, oh yeah, they're going for it. Hold on.
I don't hate this. Like, yeah, you'd say that.
Yeah, and it's like, but it continues from an earlier thing about orgies. Are they random or are they planned? And there's disagreement. And it's like, well, see, this one was planned. Like, I mean, it was random, but it was planned. They have this whole like running commentary, and meanwhile, there's like horrible, weird shit happening all around.
Yeah, because it's like the first thing you see is it's just to recap everything. So it's the enemy of a video discussion is just do a recap.
Yeah.
Let's get bored, everyone. It starts out them dating, and then like that seems to go well. Then they cut to like a year later, and then they decide, oh, we should break up. And that's when this guy jumps in their car and like they're starting to chase down a guy in a first they hit a guy on their car
Yeah.
as they break up.
To break up, and he's kind of like in his own world, and he hits a guy on a bicycle.
And the guy takes off, and then they're trying to figure out what they should do. And then a guy runs up and he says he's a cop, and then they chase down the bicycle guy, and then the cop runs him over several times, clearly killing him.
Yeah.
And then just leaves. And then they sit there and decide, like, and then there's some other people come up and it's like, oh my God, you killed that guy. It's like, no, I didn't. It's like, I did hit him with my car, but I didn't kill him. That was another guy. And like, that's the kind of just one of the funny parts because they just say things out loud and they don't like, oh, this looks bad. And that's why they run from the cops because there's like, no way, because they're two minorities in New Orleans. Are they in New Orleans?
Yeah.
It's like, there's no way they're going to believe this. Which becomes another funny thing was like, yeah, there's traffic cams. We know you didn't kill that guy.
Yeah. The police are like, it's always ominous. Like, the police are calling. Just ignore it. Or then she's talking to the cop and he's like, just hang up. Hang up on the police. Yeah, there's a lot of good. It's not laugh out loud funny the whole time, but it keeps your interest.
Yeah.
More on the strength of the performances than the script.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does keep keep you engaged.
I don't know, like around the same time they released that Adam Sandler produced movie, the Other Missy, and I imagine this has to be 1,000 times better than that.
Yeah, well, you said it, Adam Sandler. Immediately like that.
Well, the Red Letter Media guys recently did a review of it, so that was kind of.
Oh, what they think of it?
Oh, they thought it was terrible.
This really? They didn't like it?
No, not this movie. The Other Missy movie, the Adam Sandler one.
Oh, okay.
Well, he just produces it. He's not in it.
Oh, okay.
But still.
Wait, is that the one where the girl's like acts like a schizophrenic?
I don't know. She looks. I mean, the trailer, she's all weird. It has David Spade in it.
Okay, yeah, I may have watched the trailer. I don't know. Probably won't.
Well, yeah, Lauren Lapkus is the crazy chick, which I really like her stuff, but like this didn't seem to serve her well.
Yeah.
But like I didn't actually see the movie. Maybe I'll watch it and be like, oh, I actually liked it. Oh no, I disagreed with the Learn Me. But I doubt I will, so I'll never watch it.
Yeah.
I haven't watched any of the Adam Sandler shot he's done for Netflix because it just always looks terrible. So it's like, why would I watch this?
Yeah, that's the early Adam Sandler movies were like fun to watch, like back in the Happy Gilmore days.
Yeah, you have Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore, and maybe Waterboy. Like that's kind of the trifecta.
Yeah.
And then everything afterwards has been pretty. Yeah, hasn't really been great.
Yeah, comedy's really hard to do though.
Yeah.
It seems like it's something that's.
Well, it seems to be like comedy tastes seem to change so quickly.
Yeah.
That if you just keep making the same movie every year, like you're just siphoning off that original audience. Like you're not generating anything new.
Right. See, because like my height of the mountain is like Airplane and Monty Python's Holy Grail.
Yeah.
Like I will really be engaged and laugh during that's my level of comedy. And then also Strange Brew for some reason. I really like watching that. But that's kind of like when I think of comedy, I think of just totally ridiculous nonsense. I'm not like a slow burn comedy guy usually, but
yeah, this almost seemed like maybe a romantic comedy, but like guys could enjoy it.
yeah. Well, the main characters are so they're
likable.
They're likable. They're vaguely innocent, but also willing to like do bad things, and they seem to like fall into this world of murder and betrayal. Pretty, it's like, yeah, this is what we do. but they still remain true to who they are from the beginning.
But it's interesting. This was going to be released in theaters, but I guess this was a Paramount movie. And because of COVID-19, they decided just to release it on Netflix. So this is kind of a Netflix rescue.
Oh, okay.
So
this is something they were, they probably spent $20 million to make it, and they're like, yeah, we could make 50 in the theater off this, or we could, Yeah.
Or Netflix will give us 60 million for it.
Endless pockets, like they're printing money in the basement at Netflix. So, yeah, that's
Yeah, I didn't see any reviews beforehand. I just like, I like Kumail Nanjiani, and so I was like, well, hopefully this will be good. So, I don't know. I didn't hear good things about Stuber, so
yeah. I stayed away from that. I mean, the last one he did that I liked, like The Big Sick,
yeah,
which seemed like it was almost like a personal film for him. And
yeah,
so,
yeah.
like it's all.
Well, I was based on his life.
Yeah, I really like that. But yeah, some of the stuff he's doing where he's just an actor, not I like that he was.
Well, yeah, he's good on Silicon Valley and everything.
Yeah, but that's like it's Mike Judge doing all that. So, but yeah, this like the last of his movies that I watched with just him in it was The Big Sick, and that was really good. I've never watched. Was he the one who did Master of None?
No, that's
Or is that
Aziz Ansari.
Aziz Ansari? Okay. But yeah, so yeah, I enjoyed this movie. It was fun to watch. Again, it's a kind of a
Yeah, it's not a great movie to like sit here and like do like a
I'm not gonna like
introspection. Is like, what does it say about the world? Because it doesn't say anything about the world. It's just a comedy.
the world kind of full of shallow people. And so, sometimes it takes a little murder to rekindle your love for each other. You shoot a cop and throw him off a boat, making out. I mean, get that out of
Yeah, it's like yeah. It's hard.
Ridiculous.
It's hard to do that. It's also hard to sit here and just spoil all the humor in the movie. So
Yeah, so watch it. You'll be pleasantly surprised. There's nothing in fucking theaters, so and there won't be no Wonder Woman, no Greyhound.
oh, they just kick Wonder Woman next year.
Yeah, I think. Well, a lot of people are holding off because let's see, when does this shit? Monday, a lot of the shit ends here, but like what you can do in public and stuff ends here on Monday. But a lot of stuff is like, well, that we're going to open the 15th, but there's all kinds of elaborate cleaning procedures, and we can only have X amount of people in the places.
Yeah, like fourth the capacity or something.
And a lot of these theaters around here are like, nope, we're done. We can't pay our lease. We can't pay Paramount or Disney X amount of money for a film and have 10 people in the theater and make a dime unless they each buy $100 worth of popcorn. So until they figure out what they're going to do about this disease, I mean, just a lot of shit like that is going to.
I saw a bunch of articles about like what they're gonna do with the cure, and like when you're gonna get it. Like, is there a cure yet?
I don't know. I mean,
I didn't hear that there was a cure yet. But they're talking about like how the distribution's gonna work. I was like, are you threw the kind of the cart before the horse here?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about a cure. I mean, I know there was one big thing they were hoping to like give. What were they doing? I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but something about giving people antibodies from people who
Oh yeah.
and that failed today. I guess they officially announced we see no significant decrease in infection rates by doing that. So I don't know. Maybe they have a cure. I don't. I mean, if they do, it's like I'm not going to be the first one to line up for this. It's like, see what happens to this guy first. I mean, if your dick gets 3 inches longer, there's a lot of guys.
Do you need the cure? No.
No, actually, I don't. Or you'll grow huge breasts, but you don't know which one it's going to be. But most people, some of the guys would be up for both.
I got big tits now, but now I can't titty fuck myself.
Yeah. The ultimate in pleasure. People breaking their spine trying to do that. Getting their lumbar removed. It's like, do that. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, so many things like with entertainment and stuff just up in the air.
Well, apparently they're gonna, LA is gonna start opening up production again. So at least in California.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're gonna. have to do something. I mean, our state's like, I think us and New Jersey are the only states that are as restrictive as we are now. And so, because like I said, next week's gonna be the tyrant's test because they still want everyone wearing all these masks all the time in public. It's gonna be like in the 90s.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you'll see what happens. People aren't gonna do that. Like they still got us doing that at work. It's like okay, but I mean, we can even if I don't know. Just, what are we doing?
And I
Full
think
production next week, so that'll be fun.
probably the big thing will be for live sport is because they want to start football. Like I think just like hit the ground running with that.
Yeah.
Like fans and all that stuff. Because I've been hearing like the baseball wants to do like basically I don't think it's all the teams, but it's like most of the teams are going to be in Arizona, and they just like all stay at like at one hotel, all the teams, and then they just do the season at like one or a couple fields in the area.
Okay.
And then there's something similar with basketball and hockey, where they're just gonna like start the playoffs, but like in a they're gonna kind of have like a reduced format. Like they're gonna have like teams that were like already in the playoffs, so like get a buy in, but then there's gonna be like 6 other teams that are gonna have like a mini playoff to see who gets like the 8th spot in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And they're gonna do that in Florida. At least that's the plan. At least that's for basketball. I heard about that. Something similar is going to be done with the hockey.
Foreign teams.
But I believe that's just no fans. But they're just going to start the playoffs.
Yeah, they're gonna be running an ad every 30 seconds to make that money up.
I don't know. Everyone's at home. You can probably get pretty good ratings.
Yeah.
It's not like there's a whole lot of other sports going on right now, except for wrestling. But it's not like everybody's been clamoring at that.
Yeah.
Well, the ratings go up when the news isn't so spectacular.
Yeah.
When it doesn't have to fight the news, wrestling's been doing okay.
Well, that's like I was said at the beginning of the show. It's like, this is the best year ever. I mean, it's just what the fuck? When is the nuclear bomb gonna go off? Is the Yellowstone caldera gonna explode next? What's gonna happen?
Why did that pop up again? I've been hearing a bunch of stuff about that recently.
Oh, that's all. If depending on who you follow, that's gonna detonate like every week.
Yeah.
Because always something weird will happen with the sulfur springs and stuff, and they swell and get hot, and it's like here it comes, and then it doesn't happen.
Because there's some like line in the sand that somebody drew that basically said like this is why it won't explode in our lifetime.
Yeah, probably true. Well, I did learn something. I forget who. I think it was because remember when they came out with when Neil deGrasse Tyson they redid a version of Cosmos. Okay, the guys that did that also had stuff on it was either BBC or PBS. I don't remember, but I was watching it on. I think it was on Amazon or whatever, and they were talking about North America in particular. And the reason it's like, why was there great civilizations in Europe and stuff, but really not a lot in North America? And the stuff in South America seemed to rise to a certain level and stop, like it got to Iron Age and sort of stayed there. It's because there's been 7 mass extinction events in North America, and since way after the dinosaurs, like much more recently, like within 100,000 years ago. And they don't exactly know. One of them they think was a smaller meteor, and the other ones they think were like volcanoes and stuff.
Yeah.
So the reason like everything in North America is kind of weird, like with the animal life and shit, is because everything's been wiped out here quite a bit in like 4 times in the last 100,000 years, which I didn't know. I was watching this documentary. I was like, huh? Why are we living here? But they said they basically described it as like North America in comparison with some of the activity in the rest of the world geologically and with extinction stuff is basically like everyone in North America is kind of living on the San Andreas Fault in California. Like that's how bad it could get, because there's a lot of crazy shit that happens here. Like our weather's nuts here. They don't have tornadoes and stuff in England. That is a completely American thing. I mean, they have like typhoons and shit in
Yeah.
Southeast Asia, but nobody has like Twister style Oklahoma death party tornadoes like we do. We have the most violent weather in the world in the U.S. and
Yeah,
Canada.
there's no movie involving tornadoes that happens in anywhere but America.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a big. People would look at it like, "What's that?"
Except for even what was it, the day after tomorrow? But they had like super tornadoes that occurred in L.A.
Yeah. That's. I've actually had people from other countries talk to me about how frightening tornadoes seem to them. It's like, why is that? Why are you frightened of that? It's like, well, because big twisting finger comes from the sky and destroys everything. I said, I've lived here all my life. You know how many people I know personally killed in tornadoes? Zero. I know people had the roof ripped off by them, but I've never known anyone that gets killed because they have the impression like 100,000 Americans died.
Yeah.
He's like, no, it just looks cool in movies. It's violent and terrifying, and I wouldn't be running to live in Oklahoma. But Michigan, you get them, but you don't get them.
Also, Florida has like really crazy weather because one, it gets tornadoes even though it's outside of the tornado alley.
Yeah.
It gets hurricanes, and also it has like the most like awe-inspiring lightning in the world.
Yeah, more lightning strikes in Florida per year, like triple what almost any other state ever gets. And that's in 1 year.
But also, like when it does that kind of lightning where like it crackles through the sky like a firework went off, but like no, that's just lightning.
Yeah. The triple boom. Boom, boom, boom. Fucking lightning thing. It went through the sky and went times. Yeah. Your chances of getting hit by lightning in Florida are much higher than anywhere else. In Michigan, it's your chances of getting hit by a deer, which could be as bad. I don't know. Depends on what you're on. If you're on a motorcycle, it's going to be bad. But yeah, that's anyway. Yeah, back to the Yellowstone thing. It's like, yeah, that there's like actual geological evidence, but you're also talking. And I might be totally screwing up the timeline here. I thought it was 100,000 years. It could be more than that. But even 100,000 years, that's like thousands of more years than I'm ever going to live. Or, it's like that's like, how many lifetimes is that? Like, it's not really going to affect us.
Yeah.
Unless we're here when it happens. But what are the chances of that when you break that out over eons, over 10,000 eons? It's like, oh, yeah, we're okay. I mean, if we live forever, it's like, well, we got a plan. The sun's going to go nova. Let's start abandoning the planet now.
If we are vampires, we better start doing something about it.
Yeah.
And I finished watching The Outsider.
Oh, okay.
Which that was very good.
Yeah, it's a very good. I highly recommend that show. And if you want to be disturbed, read the book too. There are some differences.
So is Holly the character they expand?
Yes, Holly was. Where was she from? She wasn't black. I think she was foreign, or her parents were foreign.
Okay.
But she's basically the same person with the same abilities. It's just the actress they found and the way they did her character in the TV show was like a lot better.
Oh, okay.
Like when I read the books, because I wrote When It Bleeds, which had a Holly Gibney story in it, but it's the Holly Gibney from the book. And in my mind, I'm thinking of the Holly Gibney from the Outsider TV series. And it's like, oh, wait, no, it's not the same person, because she works at a detective agency. And she was talking, because she loves to watch movies. And she's got the two people in the detective agency. There's three of them, and two of them, one of them's it's like his daughter or his sister, but they're both black characters in the book. And they were talking once, and it's like, yeah, but we like Holly even though she's white, because she's okay. We're okay with her. She's our only good white friend or something. And I was like, oh yeah, wait a minute. In the book, yeah, she's like her parents are from Eastern Europe or something, or it was something like that. But yeah, she was not that big a character in the book.
Okay.
Kind of came in and did similar things, but she did it in a much more compact fashion. But she became a favorite character in the books after it was written. It's like, oh, we like Holly Gibney because she's autistic and she has a lot of problems and she copes with a lot of issues. just like she did in the TV series. But in the TV series, she played a much larger role.
Yeah.
Um, she was kind of like the character that introduced the weirdness. Like, you got to accept the weirdness because if you don't, you're never going to solve this thing. And so yeah.
Yeah, like, this is what I really liked about the show is that I mean, other things do that, but its whole idea of, because there's always that weird thing where it's like vampires have been around for eons, and like the story always revolves around somebody finding out for the first time there's vampires, but like how come the world doesn't know, and like the world just somehow never gets this information.
Yeah.
Which I guess that's what made True Blood kind of interesting, where you just start when the whole world knows that there's vampires.
Right. Yeah.
But here you like essentially not until like the last episode are you ever shown any supernatural thing whatsoever.
Yeah. There's not a lot going on other than just impossible. Like, this guy can't be in two places simultaneously.
Yeah. And it's everyone dealing with like the leap of logic that there's like some that's, there's this evil, El Cuco. It exists. I guess it's the only explanation we have, and they never validate whether it's true or not. But they do know like there's a thing. It can do this stuff. That's all we know.
And how or why.
Yeah.
But we have to accept that this is what it is. It's the only way we'll catch it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's all done very well. So it's like, because there's always like horror movies and stuff like that, or never all in on it. Like even Holly is like, I don't want to believe this. This is just the information I have.
Yeah. This is what my what do they call it? Like that MSET analysis stuff she can do that she can't explain why.
Yeah.
Basically eliminate all variables. She's like the human version of Occam's razor. Because she can account for all this stuff, it's like it has to be what it is. And there's no logical reason it has to be this way, but this is what we're left with.
Yeah, I like how like she can like look at something and tell you like the exact day, like when something happened. Like what are those people? Those people that remember every day of their life.
Yeah, people with eidetic memories.
Yeah. But like she can't remember like what day it is.
Yeah. Can't remember your name, has trouble with faces. It was in a movie in the 40s. Like, who was the key grip on, the what was that? Like the River Queen or some movie that like, she can tell you who designed the Maltese Falcon in the movie The Maltese Falcon. She didn't know your name.
Yeah, she can tell you how tall a building is, but she doesn't remember your last name that you just told her.
Let me give you my number for the cell phone. Like, no, it doesn't work that well.
Yeah, her relationship with that one dude is like weird, but like that's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's like she's weird. This is
kind of that was like the cop who ran the security business.
Yeah.
I think
is he a cop or is he a retired cop who now runs a security business?
Former cop, I believe.
Like, did they ever tell why he left being a cop?
No.
I don't think they did in the show. Did they do in the book? I'm guessing not.
I think he just, I'm not sure.
Or is he like moonlighting? Oh no, because it says he's a former cop. So.
Yeah, no, I don't know if they ever explained that.
And so you say Holly's another story. So does it make sense for them to do a second season of this?
Yeah, the short he wrote, was it When It Bleeds or whatever? If It Bleeds, like that was the main story. Was she found another one of these things?
Oh, okay.
Even more powerful and like more dangerous, because it didn't have that 30-day like wait to change period. Like it could change very rapidly. It was also a lot more aggressive, and it moved through society freely. It didn't have surrogates and stuff. So, yeah, they could make a... Because she says it's not... Like in the short story, I'm sorry if I'm ruining this for everyone, but she says it's not like the other thing we dealt with. It's something similar to it, but it's not the same thing. So, they could make a...
Season 2.
Yeah.
Well, I just kind of feel like this was... Because like last year you had... what was it? Scars? Or... Oh, what was it? Not Scars. What was it? The one about the child killings and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. It was the girl who wrote the. Yeah. What was that? Because me and Stacy loved it. I can't think of it.
Why can't I think
Look it up.
of? Fuck. Now I can't even think of who was in the show. It's Amy something. Hey, was it 80 Adams?
I think so.
Yeah. And it was. Nope. Nope. That's not right.
Because it was like a short. It was like a 5 episode or 4 episode.
Well, I think it was like 8 episodes or something, but
Okay.
I thought it was her. Sharp Objects. That's it.
Yeah, I knew it was something cutting or sharp. Yeah. She was a cutter.
8 episodes. So yeah, this kind of felt like, you know, it'd be like HBO. It'd be like HBO's own. What do you call those? Like Twilight Zone. What do you call those? Fuck, I'm forgetting the name of it. The series where it's like it's about every episode's a different story and all that shit.
Yeah, it's anthology.
Yeah, anthology series, but like this is like HBO's own. Like, you know, every year we're gonna do a new serial killer mystery thing. So it's Sharp Objects, and then now we're doing The Outsider. But yeah, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there's a season 2, but they obviously set up for it. I don't know if you saw it, but there's like a post credit scene in the last episode.
Yeah.
Okay. Where she just like sees that guy again in the window and she gets scared, and that's supposed to lead like, oh, there's something more. There's another one out there.
Yeah, so Stephen King already wrote a short saying that there was going to be more.
Okay.
So that was a great show though.
And the other show I've been watching on Netflix is an anime called Parasite with a Y.
Okay.
I think it's called Parasite the Maxim. That's like the subtitle or something.
Okay. What's this one about? About people running cons?
Nope.
Is it actually about parasites?
Yep.
Okay.
It is a very, very uncomfortable, like David Cronenberg level-esque of body horror.
Okay.
There's like, there's this kid, high school kid, or whatever it is in Japan, like this weird bug thing, like burrows into his hand and starts crawling up his arm, but he has his headphones on. He makes like a tourniquet and it keeps it from like going up into his body, so it just stays in the arm, and he's like screaming. And then his mom opens up the door, and then she's like, why are you screaming? And he looks at his hand, and like the hole that was there where the thing burrowed in is gone, and then the thing is gone. He's like, oh, it must have been that. And then like he just goes to sleep, and he wakes up, and his hand starts talking to him, and it starts like forming eyeballs like on his fingers, like it's like eyeballs on stalks, and a mouth will form in his hand and start talking to him.
God.
And he's like, now, so this parasite now infects and controls his hand. And then there's other parasites out there, and whatever the parasite takes over, it then becomes a cannibal of whatever it took over. So first thing, you find a dog that's been infected by the parasite, and it's eating other dogs.
Oh, okay.
And like why he's spared is that he kept the thing from going to his brain, because immediately what the thing will do when it burrows in, it'll go eat the brain and take over the body. But because it didn't eat his brain, and now just like controls his arm.
Okay.
And then like it survives on just like off of whatever he eats, whereas all the other ones like have to. So the ones that take over humans have to kill and eat humans. So now there's always like vicious murders all over the place, and like all these things. There's stuff like you'll see like the heads of the parasite people, like their heads will like unravel like an orange peel, like in like a spiral, and then just become blades and just like eat people and eviscerate people. It's like very, very uncomfortable and weird.
It's like the thing.
Yeah, very much that.
I'm watching scenes from the live action movie. It's like,
I didn't know that. I guess they always do weird.
yeah, in Japan.
Yeah. It's like, hey, this thing looks cool. Let's make a worse version of it. I remember they had this on Adult Swim at some point. And I was like, "What the fuck is this?" And so now it's on Netflix. So
I'll have to check that out.
it has a dub, and it's a pretty good dub. So you can watch it that way.
Okay, I might have to. I'll watch that.
Yeah, just watch the first episode, and you'll see what the fuck's going on. I think there's
Yeah.
like 30 episodes. I don't know like when it came out, but it's listed as like season 1, 30 episodes. But I think it probably they probably put that stuff out over like 3 years in Japan or something.
Yeah.
Sometimes things get listed like that.
Yeah, this looks really strange. So this is kind of like The Thing.
Yeah.
Weird shit like that happening. People's heads coming apart and stuff.
Yep. But yeah, so I think that's all I have for. Well, there's more stuff, but there's nothing I want to like ramp up into and do another hour conversation about. So
All right. Well, that is that then. Well, this week for the American Greed Factory podcast, this is Nathan.
and this is Conlon. Goodbye, America.